Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
This podcast is sponsored by Ignition, because the smartest agencies don't just win clients, they get paid effortlessly. Start 2026 strong at ignitionapp.com. Welcome to Agency Bytes. I'm your host, Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the business of their dreams. This week, I'm joined by someone who has protected more agencies from legal and operational chaos than most owners even realize. Sharon Torek is the founder of Torek Law, better known as Legal and Creative, where she helps agencies safeguard their ideas, strengthen client and freelancer relationships, stay compliant, and actually monetize their intellectual property. She's one of the industry's go-to legal minds, a trusted advisor through the 4As, and the creator of the Legal and Creative Agency Protection System. She's also the host of The Innovative Agency, with over 300 episodes digging into what's changing in our world and how owners can stay ahead. If you've ever wondered how to avoid legal landmines or stop leaving money on the table, Sharon is the person you want in your corner. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's great to be here.
Legal is not something that's is often seen as super sexy, but man, is it like required in our industry. And so I'm glad to spend some time digging into kind of some of the things that most agencies are probably overlooking. I know when I had my agency, I overlooked a lot of things and thought, man, this doesn't apply. It'll never come up for me. And so I kind of want to dig into some of that stuff. But yeah, so you've been running your law firm in the creative agency for a while. Give kind of your backstory and how you landed in the creative space with legal.
Yeah, it isn't sexy in the minds of a lot of agency owners, but hopefully we can nudge it a little closer in that direction by the time we're done with our conversation over the next few minutes. So I'm an IP lawyer by training, and that means I started my career out protecting brands, protecting original creative work via trademark and copyright avenues. And over time, that really morphed into a marketing and then an agency focused area of discipline. And what I loved about the ability to serve agencies was the entrepreneurship that we got exposed to, the creativity that we got a front row seat to see every single day. And that's still, hands down, one of the best parts about owning a law firm that serves agencies is the creativity that we get to see in all ways, both from strategy and and art and all of it. So it eventually evolved from an IP practice to a marketing focused practice, and then narrowed down. I'm a strong believer in niches, narrowed down to independent agencies. And so we help them with IP, we help them with contract development and negotiation, we help them with marketing regulation compliance, and then increasingly over the last couple of years, layered over that AI risk management, and there's a lot of M&A and activity in the agency world right now. So we put together those deals here and there. It's not our most frequently requested area of work, but it's definitely upticked a lot over the last 18 months or so.
We're going to get into that because I'm madly in love with M&A stuff these days, and it's where I'm leaning into, but and guiding a lot of clients through. But I'm curious, like thinking back through getting, from IP, the idea of how do I trademark my ideas? How do I trademark the software I'm building, the products I'm building? Again, from like a sexiness of legal standpoint, like what are you seeing agencies getting themselves into the most trouble with legally these days, or like avoiding that is getting them into the most trouble these days?
Right. Well, so yeah, let's talk about that, but let's first talk about the sexiness thing, because I think the sexy opportunity, if you will, that most agencies are missing out on is the opportunity to look at the legal affairs of their agency overall as a profit center, not a cost. And intellectual property creation, protection, monetization is one of the best ways to monetize the work that you do in your agency every day, not just the client fee for service work, but harvesting all that intelligence that you create,
Mm.
all that secret sauce that you are the creators of into new and additional revenue streams. So we're talking about additional income for the agency in addition to the IP you're creating on a customized basis for your clients. And then since we're going to talk M&A in a few minutes, it is a key driver of valuation
Yeah.
over time, so that when you are ready to exit as an agency owner, you have either more options because you can either sell the IP or keep the IP, sell the
Yep.
agency business or keep it. So the economic opportunities for agencies are vastly overlooked,
Hmm.
um, and so it's kind of a personal soapbox of mine to make sure that agencies understand how to leverage it for money and also how to protect it along the way so they're not getting themselves in jeopardy or their clients in jeopardy or creating, rifts in the client relationships along the way.
So turning legal into a profit center, monetizing the IP, give some examples of things that you've uncovered for clients that they're building. They didn't realize, hey, I could be. I mean, are we talking SaaS products, or are we talking? I've built this once, I can sell it over and over again as like a productized service. Like, give some examples to shake the ideas free for listeners.
All of the above, and I guess
Okay.
some of the examples that come top of mind, a lot of them emerged through the pandemic when agencies had some of their main spigots of revenue completely shut off or at least
Yep.
vastly reduced. And so agencies that have a specific area of expertise became teachers or educators. So they developed training curriculum and they monetized and licensed that, or they developed sort of a methodology that they were able to socialize with other marketing service firms for income or revenue sharing opportunities. One of my favorite examples is so analog that I- it's almost analog enough to be evergreen, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
It is an agency that had a specific specialty serving utilities, believe it or not. And they had such a vast content library of newsletter content, white paper content. They were able to license it, to your point a minute ago, to multiple clients or users in multiple non competing markets for recurring streams of revenue.
Mm.
So I like to get agencies thinking about what's your unique area of expertise and what's the unique audience that you deliver it to. And there usually are additional um, opportunities based on standardization, pattern matching that can be turned into intellectual property that can be licensed for income. And then I'll give listeners just a quick way of thinking about your intellectual property as an agency. The rubric we use is a triangle, and it is brand at one point. That's the names and other things you use to identify who sells what you're selling. It's the content that could be software, it could be marketing copy, it could be research, it could be strategy. And then the third point of the triangle is your transactions. So that's how you actually make money with the intellectual property, whether it's licensing it out, selling it outright. And also refers to protecting your transactions into the agency because
Mhm.
sometimes you use third parties to help you create some of this stuff.
So the idea is, all right, we've built something. We know that there's recurring value here. How do we turn this into a product or a service and protect it from other people swiping it,
Yep.
but also from, I guess, keeping it, I guess, insulated from the rest of the business? Like, what are some of the legal parameters that you walk them through, and like from the realization of, oh, we have something here,
Right.
right? Like that's the first realization.
Right. The first place to start is, do we have something? The second place that any agency owner's mind is going to go to is, does it present a financial or an economic opportunity for the firm? That's where you need to be thinking broadly about, is it actually a revenue generating opportunity or is it a value increasing opportunity for the agency itself? It could be both, but
Hmm.
it's definitely usually one or the other. And so if it falls in the brand, I mean, the legal mechanisms for thinking about protecting some of this stuff, and it's easier to do this if you do it along the way rather than thinking about having to attack it all at one time and the investment of time and other resources that takes. But um, be considering, do you have original go-to brands to your client market or to whomever's buying what it is that you have to offer? If you do, then you've got to be thinking about trademark protection for all of those things, whether it's brand names, product names. I can't tell you how many agencies I've seen who use the same name in different markets.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty common in this industry, actually. So your brand protection is one, the one point of the triangle, and one part of your IP portfolio that, if you keep up with it, it's not overwhelming, and it adds value to your business overall. The content is usually protectable either as a trade secret, meaning it's valuable to you so long as you keep the secret sauce secret within your agency, and there are systems and processes for doing that. Or it's something that's probably subject to either copyright or patent protection. Usually copyright. You don't see a lot of patentability in most IP that agencies create, but there are some exceptions to that, especially as you mentioned in the SaaS and software space. So that's copyright and trade secrets for the content. And then there's transactions. This is where you protect your money making opportunities. Carefully written client agreements that make sure you hold back the rights to the things that the agency wants to use on multiple occasions, either for multiple clients or to monetize separately, or in actual licensing arrangements you make to put this out into the world separate and apart from any client work that you do. And then I always like to make sure we remind agencies that you don't own the rights to anything that you've paid for that a third party has created for you. Those are your 1099 contractors, your freelancers, unless you have an agreement in writing with them that says so. That's the way the copyright law works in the United States. So again, transactions in, transactions out.
Yep.
So that's kind of your quick start guide to how you should be thinking along the way of when you're creating this. The business assessment is really one that you have to make as the owner of your agency. It's just something that we're seeing enough potential demand for, because I'll be the first to say that I'm a realist about IP as much as I love it. If it's not going to be a needle mover for your agency, it's probably not the most significant thing on your radar in terms of legal issues that you need to be paying attention to, or ways to protect and preserve value in the agency using legal mechanisms.
So, all right, you unpacked a lot there, and I have a lot of questions, but that last part is very important, and I don't want to miss that either. As far as like, what are some of those legal protections? And you touched on, like, if I build something as an agency for my client, who owns it? If I build something for my client and I use 1099 versus W-2 talent, who owns what part of it? How do I protect that kind of stuff? You clarify the difference between trademark, copyright, and patent, and kind of what that process looks like for you to advise them. So let's talk about like that health, the legal health of a business, of an agency, and some of those like protections that they should have in place. Like, again, when I had my agency, we had a contract. I think I got it from the AIGA website. I had a friend who was a lawyer look at it, and maybe that lasted 5 years. And there were so many holes in it when I finally like grew up a little bit and had somebody look at it for the different instances. What are some of these like legal health things that agencies need to kind of look at regularly?
Right. It's a great question. And as the industry is changing at a quicker pace than it ever has, the health check you should do should be more frequent. I would say that first of all. So where it all begins, as far as I'm concerned, after all these years of working with agencies, is a healthy library of contracts. We have what we consider at my firm to be core agreements that every agency should have in place and should maintain as current and should be refreshing as the industry and the work changes. That is your agency's services agreement, whether you use an MSA or whether you call it something else. Doesn't matter to me so much what you call it, but it does matter that it covers essential things like intellectual property ownership and transfer. When that transfer occurs, what will transfer, what will not transfer. um, and drifting away from this knee-jerk assumption that it's all work for hire for the client's benefit anyway. So why do we need to be worrying about this?
Right.
The truth is, it's not all work for hire. There are many things you should be thinking about holding back. And now with AI being so predominant over all of our workflows, there are things that you may deliver to the client from the agency that are not ownable by anybody because they are machine created. And so it's addressing IP in your client services agreement. It's, of course, addressing liability limits and indemnifications, things that the agency is not going to be responsible for, things that the client is required to review, do, and provide. And there are hosts of other things. But the bottom line is that is your most essential contract as an agency. You ought to be looking at it no less frequently than annually, based on the amount of change that's happening and the pace of that change. The second critical agreement is, and this is where I see agencies fall down every single day, is your independent contractor agreement. It is easy to assume because these relationships feel informal or because the work gets done quickly that a quick email to your favorite freelancer or a quick one pager is going to cover everything that you need it to cover when you're working with 1099 talent. And some of the documents I've seen in this regard are just scary in terms of the way they position the agency and owning the rights to the work and being able to fulfill their commitments to their clients in those contracts. So if your bench consists of a lot of freelancers and 1099, and I have never met an agency whose bench does not consist of these folks, you need a good, solid independent contractor agreement. That's pillar, number 2, as far as I'm concerned.
As the year wraps up, think about how much time you've lost chasing payments. With Ignition, you'll never chase invoices again. Automate your proposals, agreements, and billing, and join more than 8,000 businesses using Ignition to save time, eliminate payments, and grow faster. Make it your smartest move heading into 2026. Visit ignitionapp.com to get started. And I'll just jump in and throw that more agencies are leaning more on 1099s than W-2s. That ratio of in-house versus out-house is shifting drastically. Like, I know $6 million agencies that have 2 or 3 W-2 employees. And so, it's got to be
we
protected.
can have a whole conversation about the risk around that. But yes, so you need an agreement that addresses so many of these critical issues, not only so that you are in integrity and protected in your relationship with the contractor, but so that there's a waterfall between what you're promising the client as an agency and what you're able to deliver that the contractor has provided or participated in. So that is critical. We've seen a definite uptick, and I think this is somewhat related to the M&A frequency that we're seeing occur, but of agency to agency collaborations and strategic partnerships. And so having adequate contracts to address those relationships is super important. Who's going to own the client relationships? Who's going to own the IP that's created? What kind of competition restrictions are going to exist between the agencies, if any? There are a lot of other side issues as well, but that is a critical pillar agreement for agencies that collaborate with other agencies to serve common clients or to refer business back and forth to each other. And most agencies that I know, they either have their go-to shops with certain disciplines, or they're commonly serving a client either because the client has demanded it or because they have complementary but not competing skill sets, whatever it might be. So those are all critical, money-saving, risk-reducing, bottom line affecting legal starting points for every independent agency.
As it relates to like the MSA style scope of work kind of contracts, what are some of the most commonly things that you see missing when a client comes to you, is like, here's our bulletproof, SOW or whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're missing. Like, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you don't see?
Right. They don't flesh out the appropriate protocols and timings for the transfer of the rights to the work. That would be the first one. The second one is there's an inadequate amount of attention paid. Oh, and by the way, the IP stuff includes your ability to use samples of the work for your publicity purposes, which is a
Yes.
display right, which is an intellectual property right, which is not always called out adequately, and which you're going to regret not having addressed if you want to do a case study for your
Hmm.
next pitch or show some samples of the work. So IP, of course, liability limits and identification is important. Um, Fair competition rules.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how this is going to shake out with the way the talent market is moving over the next, year to two, but I can tell you that there's a reason why we make sure our clients have fair competition rules in the client agreement about talent poaching, and their agreements with contractors and other agencies about client poaching. So
Yeah.
fair competition rules are very important. And then over the last 2 years, we've added specific language to client agreements regarding data privacy compliance, regarding AI use, acknowledgement, and responsibility, so that everybody's on the same page about that. And then I would wrap it up by saying I don't think agencies use the opportunity at the beginning of the relationship um, well enough to document the client's responsibilities in the relationship. If the client's giving you information and data, they need to be responsible for that, not the agency. If the client's giving you product information or claims that are going to make it into the deliverables, that should be their legal responsibility. If you're a branding agency and you are recommending a brand to the client, and it's up to the client to vet that brand and make sure that it passes legal scrutiny before they're giving you the green light to launch it out into the world. So,
Hmm.
making sure that the clients are agreeing that they're going to approve work, they're going to give you the information you need, that information is going to be accurate, true, all of that. Something I think agencies are so excited at the beginning of the relationship that they're more focused on what do we have to do? What are we supposed to be committing to? And maybe not as much about what the client's responsibility in the relationship needs to be.
Yeah, the onboarding is all about, oh, we've got this new prize client. How do we make sure we don't lose it? As opposed to owning responsibility, delegating responsibility, and setting the tone for how the relationship is going to play out, even down to like, you know, communication preferences and things like that. That's not
Yep.
legally binding, but certainly, correct me if I'm wrong, but, certainly understanding like who's responsible for getting this content reviewed by attorneys or trademarked or,
100%.
yeah,
And don't you think, I mean, from my perspective representing agencies and yours having owned one, you never have more leverage than you're going to have when you're negotiating that contract. You're never going to have
that's
more
it.
leverage. And so don't treat it as a fire drill to just be rushed through. I know you're
Yep.
excited because you just won the business. And this is the only thing that's putting a roadblock between you and that retainer coming in or that spigot starting to turn on. I get it. I'm a business owner too, and we want to keep that revenue flowing. But you will never have more leverage
Yep.
legally or otherwise than you have before that agreement signed. And so be an advocate for yourself. If you need help doing so, then get the help that you need to advocate for the agency's positions on these issues.
So true. You can't go back and be like, we forgot this in our contract. Can you now sign it? No, it's not going to happen. You're pretty
Right.
much beat. All right. So two topics I'm really stoked to talk about, and I don't want to like burn through a ton of time, but AI, obviously we can't blink and not think of AI or see it
Right.
everywhere. It's in everything we do. Agencies, I don't want to say they're at the forefront of it because I think it's touching all industries, but I do think agencies are being impacted. It's the industry I play in. So from my perspective, massively,
Yeah.
um, both integrating in their workflows, using it to develop ideas, content, hopefully not production ready content. What are some of the protections that they need to put into place so that they can keep doing this and not have liability against them, I guess, for using
Right.
AI?
There are a few quick things. I'm going to give you a quick punch list if you're an agency owner or leader out there of things from a risk management, a legal perspective to think about. First of all, and this is as much about a business conversation as it is a legal conversation. You need to be having crucial conversations with your clients, your vendors, your contractors, and your employees about what are the rules of the road about how we're going to use AI, what platforms, what use cases, what policies does the client have that we need to be aware of so that we're not breaching those policies. So you need to have crucial conversations with all the relevant parties about AI to make sure everyone's on the same page regarding your risk tolerance and any rules or policies that need to be considered. So that's number one. Number two, be familiar with the platform's terms and conditions. The cliff notes on that, the spoiler alert is these platforms are all happy to have you own the rights to any output, and they're not going to protect you if that output breaches somebody else's intellectual property rights. So just know that going in, but read the terms and conditions of the platforms that your agency use most frequently so that you are conversant about them and can explain them to your client, in layperson's terms if you're ever asked to do that. That's number two. Number three, have written policies, both a client facing policy around how the agency thinks about and uses AI, and there's multiple components of that. But have an internal policy. These should be living, breathing, and constantly changing documents because AI is going to look and feel different 6 to 9 months from now than it feels today, of course,
Yep.
if not sooner than that. So policies around how you use it, what you use, what your use cases are, what the human guardrails need to be around any work that goes out the agency's doors, either to a client or even worse, out into the world without a client having seen it first. So that's policy making. And then, I think that number 5 is making sure that your contracts, as we said earlier, so we don't need to belabor it, but your contracts should all be addressing AI. Your client contracts, your employment agreement. If you don't have a written policy, you should have an addendum in your employment agreement about it. Certainly your independent contractor agreement. If your contractor's using AI and not telling you about it, so you're not therefore disclosing it to your clients, that's a problem for the agency. So you need to be addressing it in those agreements and in your vendor agreements. So those are your 5 quick start steps towards avoiding risk and sort of thinking about how you manage the risk. And they're all living, breathing tactics, things that you need to revisit on a regular basis. And if you set the foundation of this, it doesn't have to feel so onerous, right? It doesn't have to feel like it's taking over all the bandwidth that you think you're saving by using these tools in the first place. Because that's a common and understandable pushback is, well, if we have to do all of this compliance stuff, you're so far ahead of your clients as an agency when it comes to AI adoption. I have not seen a use
Hopefully.
case yet where the agency isn't farther along than the client is. So be a leader and take the breath that you need to take to put these steps in place to reduce your risks.
And you said something that's so valuable that I'm constantly preaching is educate your clients.
Yep.
Don't just, deliver work and not explain how you developed it or where it came from or why you're using AI or how AI played a part in this or that. You talked about terms and conditions. It just reminded me of the South Park episode about terms and conditions.
I didn't see it, but I can only imagine.
It's absolutely hilarious. Look it up. But
I will.
trying to understand these terms and conditions is impossible. And so if you can, from an account management and education standpoint, be the forefront there for your clients, here's what it means. And here's why we're doing this, not that. Here's why you can't just replace us with AI, like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It goes
and
a
your
really
marketing
long way.
counterparts at your clients, especially if your clients are enterprises,
Right.
they need your intervention so that they can get this successfully run up the flagpole with their IT and their legal teams. And so the more fluid and conversant you are, and the more you've thought about these things ahead of time from a risk management step, the faster you're going to get to getting the work done and getting paid for it, because you're going to be knocking some of those roadblocks out of the way more efficiently.
Agreed. Yeah. So AI is not going anywhere. It's shifting massively, super fast. I've seen a lot of founders panic sell their agencies this year because of the AI tsunami that's coming at them. They don't want to adapt again. They've already been through the downturns of economy. They've already been through the '08 recession. They've reinvented themselves 20 times, and they're like, yeah, here's one more, I'm done. So
Yeah.
panic selling is going on, which is an upside for the acquiring agency, but a downside for the sellers. And you're doing some transaction work yourselves. Can you
Yeah.
talk about what you're seeing in, coming into early 26, like what you're seeing in the agency M&A market and some of the, I guess, pitfalls that we're seeing in the transactions?
Right. I think that we're seeing a much larger frequency of the smaller transactions than we would have seen, 5 years ago. I agree that the tsunami that AI feels like right now is driving a lot of the activity, a lot of the interest.
Hmm.
I haven't seen any outright, I have to be honest, panic I on the part of the selling owners. I have seen fatigue. I have seen, it has been a great run, but we're not up for version 3.0, 10.0, whatever it is, of what this industry is going to look like for us to continue to win. So let's take some of our chips off the table now. And so we've seen strategic third party buyers for sure, where they can fold in, either there's an interest in the client roster or there's an interest in the talent roster. And it's creating all kinds of opportunities for efficiencies and
Hmm.
for doubling down in a market you're already interested in serving by folding another agency in. So, I choose to look at it in a balanced fashion. I think the increase in volume is, as you say, I think AI has something to do with it. Whether the lift is actually heavy or just the perception of the lift is heavy. I also think that those agencies that made it through with the skin of their teeth through the pandemic, they were just getting righted again. They had
Hmm.
one really strong year, and then the trade winds economically, along with the technology of AI advancing upon them, has just felt like more than they want to continue to balance. And so we've seen some internal transactions with leadership teams buying the agency from the owner. We've
Hmm.
seen third party transactions. And then there are new and novel approaches, both on the PE side, equity coming in and buying up and rolling up shops, and also um, mini holding companies, if you will. They're
Yep.
not true holding companies, but they are collectives or aggregators, if you will, of agencies with different specialties that complement and can do better together than either of any of them could do individually. So that's what I'm seeing out in the marketplace. And some interesting innovation, I think, could come out from under this, where agency owners with smaller books or smaller firms who may have thought that their only option a couple years ago was just to close, shut the lights out, and they may have more options now than they thought that they did. And I think that that is a reason for optimism. So I think that there's lots of ways to look at the situation. And if you're an owner that's at that stage of your career in owning an agency, I think there's more possibility for you out there than there even was a few years ago. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I just
Yeah.
think that there's a lot more players out there to sort through. So that, that's a challenge. But that's why you have advisors that like Steve to help you come in and figure out what makes sense for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of optimistic movement going on. There's not, the panic that I'm seeing, the panic selling is like the intent. Like you said, I'm burnt out, I'm fried, I've been through,
Yeah.
economic downturn, pandemic, God knows what other kick in the face. Like I'm done. What do I do with this thing, right? So
Yeah.
literally 3 agency owner friends that I'm working with now are like, how do I, divest this agency?
Yeah.
And so there's options, but there's really like creative and exciting opportunities, which I
Right.
love being a part of. I think it's really cool from a legal standpoint, thinking about kind of doing an acquisition, or even on the other side of doing the
Mhm.
divestiture. Like, what are some of the pitfalls that you've seen that have like killed a deal, whether they've gone in too hot, or like some of those
Yeah.
things that you've seen of like, oh, I can't believe that killed it.
just did a workshop about this recently, about how to prepare and what to be thinking about, and the things that either cost the seller and sometimes the buyer more money or adversely impact the valuation, which is, the name of the game when you're trying to exit. So, and coincidentally, these are the same things that you should be thinking about to keep your agency strong anyway, whether you plan on selling it or not. But the first of them is not adequately accounting for, auditing, and protecting the intellectual property that you're creating along the way. Because if you want to use it as a value sweetener, you need to demonstrate value. And one of the ways you do that is by securing it as you create it and properly monetizing it with license arrangements, things like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is looking at your auditing your client contracts to see whether or not they are assignable, because an agency or an owner who wants to buy your agency is not going to be interested in a book of business that has easy out clauses in all the client agreements, or proof somehow that the client is in it to win it with you and will go with the new owners. So audit your client agreements. That's the second thing. Audit your IP, audit your client agreements. And then the third thing I'll mention just, quickly, this tends to be not a deal killer, but a deal delayer and therefore a cost increaser, is you don't have your act together on just in terms of corporate affairs. You don't have corporate agreements between co-owners. You don't have the necessary bylaws or operating agreements. Nobody's sure whether you're a corporation in good standing anymore. Nobody knows where any of the IP registration proof is. So just having your corporate ducks in a row internally, your legal foundation internally in place, I've seen that add weeks to a close date, and that's not happy news for anybody involved in the transaction. So I would say those are the top three things to be thinking about if you want to position yourself. And the longer your horizon between now and when you think you might be ready to do that, the easier and less expensive these things are to clean up along the way. So, and like I said, those happen to be a lot of the same things it takes to just be a good, strong, solid agency anyhow. But if you're looking at the dollars and cents of it and the calendar days and months of it, then those are definite difference makers in my experience.
Thank you. I'm so glad you said all that. And you said some really key points. One is the longer you delay it, the more expensive it gets, the more
100%.
money you're at a possibility to lose. Second thing that you said that I absolutely love is if you've got all your ducks in a row and you're just running your business as if it could sell, it's just a good running business. And that's what you should have: legally protected, good client protection, good, strong pipeline, strong processes, good, like all of these things. Sure, you're ready to sell if that opportunity comes along, but you've got a really good, healthy agency. And that's what I've been like preaching for years, is like, build it as if you want to sell it, and then find the opportunity to say no, because man, that feels really good.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree. And, one of the saddest things for us to see when we're advising an agency through this process is the deal stop in its tracks because you got a really weak agreement with the client, or you don't have agreements at all in writing with clients because you've been handshake businessing with them for the last 5, 10, or it's great to have a long-standing relationship, but those legacy relationships tend to be linked to the founding owner of the agency. And if you don't have the contract to back up the revenue, then that's not going to be a very strong selling point for you to a potential buyer. So these things have dollars and cents consequences, and you can knock those things out of the way proactively if you are careful along the way about doing these things, which is why I consider legal affairs to be a profit making tool for any agency.
Yeah, absolutely true. Invest now, invest early in what you need to be healthy and protected, and add multipliers to what your exit could look like and to the profit that you're experiencing now. Man, you are an absolute chasm of knowledge, and frankly, these are all topics that I freaking get just stupid excited about. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to
I
kind
have
of
never been called a chasm of knowledge before.
get
That
out of here. That's on your business card. I know it.
It's not, but I might reprint them, or I might create a digital version, and maybe I'll put it in my LinkedIn profile. Chasm of
Perfect.
knowledge. I love
Yeah.
it.
All right, let's wrap up with a couple real quick rapid fire questions. Sharon, this has been awesome. So the first is, what's a small daily habit that makes your work life noticeably better?
A small daily. Oh man, this is going to sound so analog and retro. I'm a paper and pen girl, and my process involves as many digital tools as I use. My favorite notebooks are those 5x7. It's a Spanish company. I actually have one right in front of me. I'm going to quick cheat.
Is it the Moleskines?
No, it is a Mikel Rios.
Okay.
I use these notebooks, and I make my I have 4 quadrants of admin, marketing, legal, which is client production work, and then sales. And I make those. That's how I organize myself every day, every week. And so that's a daily habit, a weekly habit that has never failed me. And I think I process information and retain it more strongly with pen and paper.
I'm the same way, and the endorphin rush I get with crossing something off my list is way better than like clicking a mouse to check it off. It doesn't even compare.
You got to put something on your list just so that you can check it off, even if you didn't. You want the proof that you did it. Yeah,
I do that all the time. I do something, and I'm like, oh, it wasn't on my list. Like even my weekend list. Oh, I didn't have feed the birds on there. I'm adding it and crossing it off. So yeah.
Yep.
What about?
I travel a lot. I make packing lists. I don't need to write down what I'm going to pack anymore, but I do it anyway.
All right. If you could instantly master any skill outside of your profession for fun, for business, for whatever, what would it be?
I would like to learn how to build a custom GPT. I have practiced a little bit, but I would like to be fluent in building one myself so that I know what it feels like to go through the process.
I can introduce you to a few people that can walk you through it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then finally, what's, other than any AI app, what's one app that you love that most people would never expect that you use regularly?
Oh, what is one app that I use regularly? I don't know. I don't think I'm that unique when it comes to, let me think about this really quickly. I love my the app that supports the project management software that we use at the firm. It's a law firm specific, but they have a mobile app that's pretty slick. And so I rely on that extremely heavily for our financial dashboarding, our calendaring, all of it. It's kind of a fingertip thing. So I guess I would say that one. And then personally, I was a fan of the Noom app for a long time. It was like a nutrition and dieting app.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of Merlin. It's the birding app, and it pulls from Cornell University's database. And so we'll be out in the kitchen or in the yard, and we'll hear a bird, and I'll fire up the Merlin app, and it'll be like, oh, that's a whatever.
Yeah.
Tough mat, So yeah, big bird nerds, but Merlin's a cool app for that.
Awesome.
Anyway, Sharon, I am super grateful for your time, all the experience that you shared with us. Folks, check out Sharon. She's at legalandcreative.com. Got the podcast there, tons of information, webinars, workshops, all of it. Sharon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's been a great time together.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.